My first guest tonight does not need a very effusive introduction, but I'd like to give him one anyway because I am an unabashed fan of Jackie Gleason ever since I saw him in the early days of television back in the early 50s when he was doing the Cavalcade of Stars out of New York. He's the subject of a book written by columnist and a pal of his for 36 years, Jim Bacon, called How Sweet It Is. He has worked in practically every branch of our business, including nightclubs and motion pictures and television. And he is one of the true comic geniuses of our times. Would you welcome Mr. Jackie Gleason?
Wonderful.
Now, just once say how sweet it is, and we'll get on with this.
How sweet it is!
You know, must be a kick. You did the Honeymooners in, what year exactly? The first original 39 episodes.
I think around 1951.
51.
We started them.
Only did 39 episodes
39.
of the half hours. And now you have a whole new generation of fans. The youngsters, of course, who were just born then, are now seeing them all over. It must give you a great kick.
It is.
To see a whole new generation
very
of fans.
Very gratifying to think that something you did 30 years ago shows up and is a hit.
Yeah, and a big hit.
Yeah.
And a big, big hit. You know, this is the first time. I've been doing this show for 23 years. Never had you on the show.
I don't understand it, John.
Yeah.
The only thing I can figure is I was waiting to find out if this show was a hit.
You're out here doing a picture with young Tom Hanks, right?
Yes, and he is a fine actor.
Yeah.
Great actor.
Now, tell me about your friend Bacon here. You've known each other for a number of years, and you both... the book is filled with a lot of your... for the lack of a better word, pranks or... Escapades, evenings out. Matter of fact, you kind of wrote this book over sharing a little scotch at one time.
Well,
right?
we had a few aperitifs. and Jim is a good man with the singers. So he's very nice company.
Matter of fact, when you were doing the toy, didn't they tell him to...
Oh, they considered him a bad companion for me. They thought if he showed up, I'd get stewed. And they were right.
You know, I was reading the book last night, and I came into your dressing room a while just before the show tonight. And I said, you remember a show.
Oh, John.
We can get that one out of the way right off.
Yeah.
You've had many successes, but you did a television show in 1961. Oh. The show itself went on one time. It was called You're in the Picture.
Oh.
Now, the reason I'm bringing this up was because I was also a part of the show. You were the host, if I remember, and you sat over to the right of the stage, and you sat at a little table, and you had your little coffee cup. And I think I was on the show. I think Arthur Treacher. The late Milt Kamen.
Jan Sterling.
Now, the idea of the show was the television audience could see at home, and the studio audience could see a picture. The celebrities would come, and we put our heads through a hole in the picture from the back. We didn't know what the picture was.
Good God.
Yeah. I was one of those people. And you would ask questions, and we would ask questions of you, what we were doing. Are we an animal and so forth? And it really did not go too well. And I remember one of the questions I asked you about halfway through, I said, would you tell me why I've got my head through this hole in this picture? The critics took the show apart, and next week you came on the stage and did one of the funniest half hours on television because you didn't do that show. You just sat down and apologized.
I came out and apologized to the audience for committing such a terrible crime. This was the biggest bomb ever put on television. And when I went to the executives of CBS and I said, I got to go on next week and apologize for this. They said, we don't allow anybody to go on and apologize for anything we put on. And I said, well, this week you're gonna. And I had a lot of fun that night.
It was wonderful. You came out and sat there. It was one of the funniest half hours I've ever seen. You only did, let's talk about the honeymoon a little bit. You did 39, and they came to you and wanted you to do another season.
Yeah.
And you said no at the time.
They didn't believe me.
People have always wondered why you didn't, because it's so successful.
Well, we were running out of ideas, and I liked the honeymoons. I liked doing them. And I didn't want to denigrate them by, forcing scenes that didn't mean anything.
Right.
So I wanted to quit. And they didn't believe me. They thought I had another job someplace.
Right.
But I didn't, and I'm glad I did stop then. Because what we had done was good, and if we had gone any further, we might have spoiled it.
Yeah. All these characters, I saw the piece that Morley Safer did with you on 60 Minutes. All the characters you do, from Ralph Cramden to Joe the bartender to the poor soul, really came out of your background in the early years in Brooklyn, didn't they?
Well, yes, the honeymooners especially, because there were 1,000 Nortons and 1,000 Cramdens. And Reggie, of course, I did in burlesque, and I did the poor soul on Broadway.
Right.
So they fit in pretty good with television.
Which of those characters, of all of them, is the closest to Jackie Gleason?
Well,
Can you most identify with?
I guess I'd have to say Reggie.
I wish we had the train set up where the train came out with a little jigger of booze. We're going to take a short break. We're coming right back. You're a great. You used to play the trumpet. In your act,
but I
played at it.
Played at it.
Yeah. In your early act?
Yes.
You played a lot of. What were some of the
I
places?
had the worst act, John, in show business. It was horrible. And it was 6 minutes of absolute boredom. And on our show one night, the curtain got stuck.
Right.
So I said, I am going to do my old act. And it was a riot.
It killed him.
Killed the people. Can't understand it. When I needed it, it didn't work.
Didn't you work? Was it Jack White's?
Jack White's 18
The
Club.
18 Club?
Greatest nightclub in the world.
Was that one of your early jobs?
Yeah. You weren't allowed to do an act. It was all ad-lib. And every night there were big stars, Robert Taylor, Jimmy Cagney, and they'd come in and we'd make fun of them. And it was a hot spot. All the columnists came in every night. It was a joy working there.
Didn't you used to hustle pool after you got out of high school?
Yes. Well, no, when I was in grammar school.
Grammar school.
I started out as a rat boy when I was about 9 years old. And they let me play in the back table. And I got pretty good at it. And when somebody come in and wanted to play somebody, they picked me.
Right.
I was the house boy. And then on graduation day in grammar school, they gave you those little gold pens.
Yeah.
And I used to play the kids for their gold pens. And I'd get a nice box of them and go down to the hot shop and turn them in.
So this came in when you did The Hustler, in which you were nominated for an Academy Award. That came in handy, shooting pool.
Oh,
Yes,
sure
Minnesota
it did.
Fats.
Sure it did. And Paul began to learn to play pool very well.
Yeah. You got Willie Moscone, somebody said, to kind of give him some lessons.
He's the greatest.
Did you do in grammar school Little Red Riding Hood in a Yiddish accent? Is that true?
You certainly have done your research.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And that's when I knew I wanted to be in show business before then. My father took me to a vaudeville show. And at intermission, they put the house lights on. And I was sitting in the first row. And I stood up and I turned around and I faced the audience. And I knew that that's the way I should look for the rest of my life. And then the next thing was the school play.
Right.
And I got a couple of laughs, and that did it.
That always does, doesn't it, for comedians?
Yeah. There is nothing like a big yammo coming in. A big yuck.
A lot of the book is devoted to your old friend, whom I know, of course, not as well as you, Toots Shore, and his saloon. Toots would never call it a restaurant. It was a saloon. He was a saloon keeper, right?
He sure was.
And when Toots died, I read that you sent a wreath that said, "Save me a table."
Yeah.
Is that right? Were the bouts, the drinking bouts as large? Did you ever miss a performance because of it?
No, never did. Never missed a show. And I'm not advocating that everybody should drink.
Right.
It just worked for me. And, of course, the gentleman on my right has had a taste or two.
Yes, he will. I was reading in the book, when you do the shows, you were one of those people who've got an instinctive ability to look at a piece of material, a script, and then go out and do it. You didn't particularly like rehearsing.
No, I hated to rehearse. And I had a stand-in who was funnier than I was. He would do the sketches with the performers. I'd go through it with him once, and then he would do it. I just didn't like to rehearse. I thought it took something away from the performance.
But there were some wonderful moments on the show where things would happen. In fact, they played some of those recently with the old the lost episodes.
Connie, one time, was trying to get out the door, and it was stuck. So we went out the window.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Went down the fire escape and came back up.
He's good. Connie is one of the greatest comedians and dramatic actors of all times.
Yeah, he is.
And Audrey Meadows, sensational.
You originally turned Audrey down, didn't you? She came in and auditioned for the part, if I remember, looking very pretty, and you said, no, she's too pretty for the part, and then somebody gave you a picture where she kind of...
Well, that's the legend. I'll go along with it.
Yeah. Sounds good. But you like to act, don't you? You're a good actor. You have a lot of depth as an actor. As a serious actor.
I think that comedians, it's a strange thing. Many comedians have become good actors, but I don't know of any good actors who became great comedians.
That's true. Absolutely true. Let's talk about money a little bit. Toots used to tell me that... Toots used to tell me before you made it big, you used to run up tabs at his place and hand out tips, even when you didn't have it.
Well, he said to me, if you want anything, go ahead and sign for it. So I said, all right. So I signed a tab one night. It was for about $60, and I put a $40 tip. And he came flying over. He says, what are you doing? I said, keep this up, and I'll give you back your pen.
So you just signed the tabs?
Oh, yes.
All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. Stay where you are. Was it in the 60s, Jack, you made the albums, Music for Lovers Only, and some of those other great mood albums?
Yes.
That's an interesting story.
No, it started around, I think, 54.
That's an interesting story. This is something you wanted to do, and everybody wouldn't back you on it and said, you got to be kidding, because you don't read music.
That's right.
And you don't write it, and yet you came out with these albums and conducted, and they were a smash hit.
Well, it all happened because of Clark Gable. I saw Gable in a picture, and he was all made up, and he was dressed in tails. Looked great. And he was doing the dialogue. Then he sat down on the couch with the girl, and the music snuck in. And then everything he said was just magnified 1,000%. So I figured, if Gable needed music, a guy in Brooklyn must be desperate. So we put together the music, and as it turned out, it was quite successful.
Yeah, you had strings. You got Bobby Hackett.
Oh, yeah.
One of the great trumpet players. The only trumpet player.
Funny thing, when I first heard Bobby, he was playing guitar in Glenn Miller's orchestra. And every now and then, they'd let him play a sweet passage. So I heard him do this, and I said, someday I'll get some strings, an acre of strings, and you'll play the horn, and we'll make some music.
Didn't you have 40 mandolin players? Or something
like
that?
That was
what was
time of all times. 40 mandolin players. You couldn't get a haircut for 50 miles around. No chance. They came in and sat down, and they started to play, and they had hard picks. And it sounded like somebody threw a bed spring out the window. So I said, Dad, this will never do. I sent out for soft picks. And they played it, and it still was a little raunchy. So I went around with a glass of water, and I said, dip your picks in the water, soften them up. Now they started to play, and the water's hitting them in the chin. And they're ready to go. You know, they think I'm a nut. So we finally made a recording, and I played it back to them, and they were all very satisfied. But that was a tough session.
Yeah, you also sat down and did the theme song for the Melancholy Serenade, didn't you?
And our friend there was very kind to play it one night.
Yeah,
Played a whole medley.
I remember you sent me a note on that.
Yes,
Forgotten, yeah.
yes, it was very nice.
Who influenced you? Who did you enjoy as a kid watching? I know Ollie and Stan and Ollie were. You and Art did them one night, and it was
Jack Oakey.
Jack Oakey.
Jack Oakey was one of the best comedians and dramatic actors I had ever seen on the screen. He always played John Payne's friend, but he made it interesting, and that's not easy to do.
Why don't you see? Why don't you see many sketch comedians anymore?
Pardon me, John.
Sure, certainly.
Boy.
That's good coffee.
Oh.
That's good coffee.
Oh, that's dandy.
You don't see many sketch comedians anymore. Everybody's doing
No, there's
stand-up,
very
and
few
you
of
don't
them.
see the real physical type of sketches anymore. Wonder why?
I think it's because of programs that use monologists.
Yeah.
And all they have to do is walk out and tell some jokes. And they're stuck with that. They never do scenes.
Right.
There's very few places. There's no more burlesque or anything or variety shows where you do scenes. So I guess that's why there aren't good scene comics around.
Yeah, it's too bad.
There are some.
Yeah. Who do you watch on? Do you watch much television at all?
I watch the Channel 2, is it here?
Is that
The public...
must be Channel 6 or Channel 28, I don't know. 28.
And I watch sporting events. Because when I watch a situation comedy show, they do the first few lines and I know where it's going, so it's no fun. And then they have the laugh machine.
Yeah.
Guy comes in and says, hello, and gets a yuck.
Hi, Dad. How's the job?
Bow!
I remember.
Guy sits there playing the organ.
I remember when you did it was the Ducanicam system, they call it, Dumont, with the
yes.
3 cameras set up at the first time done, all in front of a live audience.
That's right.
In New
Never
York.
did a show any other way but in front of an audience. No cue cards, no teleprompters, and that's the only way to do a show.
Yeah.
How are you going to know if you're timing something if you haven't anyone to say it to?
Yeah. Get that feedback.
Yeah.
Anything in your life that you want to do you haven't done yet?
No, I've been pretty lucky. I got a chance to do most everything I wanted to do. Some of it laid a bomb. Some of it was pretty good. I've been very, very lucky. And anybody that thinks it's just their talent, they're crazy. You got to have luck. And, you know, talent is a very annoying thing because you can't take any credit for it. It's a gift from God, you know. And you're stuck with that. Somebody says you're good, you say, well, God did it.
Well, in your case... Look, can you stay with us the rest of the show? You have to split? I know you got to go because I know you're doing this picture called, I forgot the name of the picture.
Nothing in Common.
Nothing in Common with Tom Hanks. I can't tell you what a kick it is to finally have come out here and spend a little time together.
John, you were beautiful.
I've been an admirer of
You
yours.
held up the book.
Yeah, Jim's book, House. What's it called?
Oh, sweet
It is. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.